So Time has named its Person of the Year. And unsurprisingly, they actually made a really good choice in choosing Greta Thunberg. Now, she's a 16-year-old activist, a climate activist that has been getting a lot of attention for basically trying to bring attention to the issue of climate change. And she's been, like I said, doing incredibly well. So now Thunberg was described by Time in its profile as delivering a quote, simple truth in a fateful moment. Absolutely. In the debate over how to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and prevent catastrophic environmental damage. So now that damage, of course, would have to be dealt with by members of Thunberg's generation, who will face massive problems like increased drought, sea level rise, mass migration, obviously higher temperatures, stronger storms, food shortages, etc. And so you can understand why a lot of people her age are kind of mad when it comes to the adults, right? Especially when it comes to even the older adults, Generation X, Silent Generation, Boomers. And so this is why millennials and Gen Z are, like I said, very angry when it comes to, especially the politicians, Republican politicians, and Democratic politicians who seem to make a lot of promises on the climate, but yet continue to kowtow to corporations. And so now, of course, following this, conservatives were very, very unhappy about this news. So instead of getting the message of, hey, you know what, we should be the adults in the room. We should do what's best for the following generation. We should make this world a better place to live in than when we got it, right? Instead, conservatives cry and say things like this. John Cadillo says that's the final nail in Time's credibility, saying that naming her Person of the Year. Credibility. Gone. All of it. Anthony DeMarco says she is a puppet and hasn't done anything. She is nothing more than a little girl. So, there's so much condescension in a lot of these tweets. And, of course, a little bit of sexism as well, I think. Oh, what a little girl. So here's the thing. What has she done? Well, she started the conversation, and she basically steered the world's attention towards adults' failure on doing something about climate. And so, part of that is chastising people in power for dooming her generation with the effects of climate change. So, yeah, she actually did do something. What else do you want her to do? Really? I mean, you say, oh, well, she's just a little girl. She's just a child. Well, then she's got no power outside of her voice. It's not like she's in elected office, right? And see, here's the thing. The fact that she has no actual power to change this other than change the conversation, which she has done beautifully and wonderfully, and that's why she's getting the credit here today. The thing is, everyone is in power who is in power right now, she sees as not doing a damn thing. Nothing to help her generation, nothing to help them deal with the climate change. And so, yeah, of course she's angry. Now, Angel Rivera says this. They don't print this magazine. Hopefully they don't print this magazine on paper. Can't promote a person who wants to save the earth with the destruction of trees. Yes. What an excellent argument. I mean, you want to change society somewhat, and yet you also seem to partake in society. I am very intelligent. Trace It Back says, well, one more magazine I will never buy. Person of the Year is a 16-year-old who does not go to school, has no experience, nor education in climate change, and is driven by the adults who lead her with their agenda. Shame on you, Time. Guaranteed. This guy, whoever it is, would never have bought a Time magazine anyway. And let's be honest, I mean, I've never bought a Time magazine. I don't really know anybody who does. I know there are people out there that have subscriptions to Time. I'm just not one of them. But okay. So now, my question to that person is, where's your education in climate change? What do you know about it? Doesn't sound like you know a lot. But here's the thing, right? You don't have to be a scientist to talk about climate change. What you need to do is all you have to do is listen to the 99% of climate scientists that have sounded the alarm. Even read the studies. I mean, again, that's all that Greta and a lot of young people have been doing. They've been listening to the science instead of listening to the propaganda put out by the fossil fuel industry, which has a financial incentive to continue selling fossil fuels. You see where this is going? Financial incentive over here, or incentive to actually help save the protect the environment. I mean, I can't decide who's right. No, that said, the science, by the way, is settled. And here's the thing, too, right? So I know conservatives always point out, yeah, but look at all the research grants that these scientists are getting. Yes, the few thousands of dollars in research grants that, by the way, the scientists turn around and use it to do the actual research. So it's basically a job, versus the billions of dollars in profit generated each year by the largest fossil fuel corporations. I know, but those things are just totally equal. Yeah. All right. So now Bruce Wayne, of course, that billionaire Batman who uses all of his money not to do anything about climate change, just goes around with a costume and beating people up, said this. I know it's not the real Bruce Wayne because there's no such thing. Quote, she basically does nothing except for her exaggerated emotion towards climate change, and she offers no practical solutions for the governments on how to save the earth. Why is she the person of the year? Okay. Now, I love the subtle accusation right there. Did you catch that? Oh, what an actress. Exaggerated emotion. She's acting, and she's acting very poorly. I mean, people have said that outright. They've accused her of being an actress. But here it is. Here's what's like. She is actually part of the on the spectrum, and so they're literally making some fun of someone who's on the autistic spectrum. Way to go, Bruce! Way to go! Not exactly heroic to be making fun of somebody, and for actually expressing emotion. That said, it is not her job. It's not a 16-year-old job to come up with solutions to climate change. Again, all she's going out there is saying, this is going to impact my generation. Adults, do something about it so that we don't die. Again, really simple request. Okay. As far as solutions, we already have solutions. We have things like a Green New Deal. We even had things like, for example, the Paris Climate Agreement, in which no country really seems to be on target of hitting. So we do have solutions, but what we don't have is the political will to enact those solutions and to get off fossil fuels. And yet this guy, of course, ironically, votes for politicians that then vote against doing those solutions. So ironic, right? Again, the reason that she's person of the year, and you might not agree, even if you do appreciate her activism, right? The reason she's person of the year, I think, is because she's angry and she's tired of your crap. And I don't mean you, I mean the adults that don't care to do anything about climate change. She is, suffered all sorts of weird, misogynistic, sexist, ageist attacks on her, people tying her to George Soros, which is crazy, and saying that, again, she's an actress, vicious attacks. And she's generated a lot of headlines. And those headlines, again, she's went after Emmanuel Macron, the French president. She went after Jair Bolsonaro. She does not care who she goes after, as long as they're, again, in order to make her point that they need to be the adults in the room and actually do something about it. And so that's her entire message. And all we get from these Trump people are attempts to shut her up. That's it. And finally, one more here from the negatives. And then we'll do a couple of positive comments here. SP Ingwenya says or asks, does she go to school? Well, yes, she does. That's why she's smarter than pretty much most of the other or all the other respondents so far. I mean, again, you have to go to school, or well, you don't have to, but generally when you go to school, you tend to learn facts there. Now, what's funny is that I think a lot of these same people who ask, why aren't you in school right now, young lady? They're the same people that also say that school is basically liberal brainwashing centers. Because, oh no, you learn facts there. We don't want that. Again, not all the responses were bad. So let me go to Dan Walker, who says, I honestly think this girl is absolutely amazing. She thoroughly deserves it. She's famous all over the world, not for singing a song or doing something silly in a club or appealing on a reality TV show, but for directing all of our attention to the biggest issue of our time. That's a great point. Again, I've mentioned here in this world, we basically elevate stupidity or nonsense. Just nonsense. I mean, again, look at what we have for entertainment. A lot of reality TV shows, which really aren't even real. They are scripted. So, I mean, come on. There are people that are getting too much attention for doing nothing, ridiculous things. And for example, Honey Boo Boo, Jersey Shore, Floribama Shore. I mean, all these ridiculous shows. And so it's nice to see that somebody's actually getting media attention and being elevated for doing something positive and trying to, I don't know, get people's attention towards something that is incredibly relevant. So thank goodness. Now, Christiane Amanpour also adds, as the climate crisis intensifies, you're an indispensable moral conscience for our time, calling out governments and institutions for doing too little, too late. Maria Shriver finally says, Greta's the youngest person to ever be named Times Person of the Year. Bravo to her and to all the other young people who have stood with her. And look, we're not gonna stop hearing from her. Her and her generation, they're getting closer to be able to vote, by the way. So their voice, it may be ignored now, but once they start voting, their voice is going to be very, very hard to ignore. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.